So far in the series to learning Python, we've seen a few key things. Number one, how to actually set up an environment. Number two, looking at SDKs, looking at libraries. Now we're ready to kind of start jumping into what the code actually looks like. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how to set up variables and then how to use variables in a few different scenarios. Let's go ahead and get started. A variable does one thing and one thing only. It holds some value. And this value could actually pretty much be anything. It could be a number, which is called an integer in programming. It could be a string. It could be multiple strings. It could be anything. It could even be some sort of output, anything. The idea is that a variable does one thing and it does the same thing across any programming language. It holds a value. I'm going to erase the screen here and let's go ahead and type hi equals hi Mike. Now what is this? Well, this is a variable. So let's go ahead and explain this. Hi is the name of the variable. So this pretty much means the name and how you use the variable, how you call the variable. So for example, let's say I want to see hi Mike written on the screen. Because hi Mike is contained in the hi variable, the hi variable holds that hi Mike value, I can then use hi to print out hi Mike. This equal sign, you're always going to have an equals, you're always going to have some name, and then you're always going to have the value. This is going to be different throughout any programming language. A variable is always going to be a variable, but the way it's portrayed and the way it's written will absolutely be different. A variable doesn't have to be just a string. For example, if I say num equals 5, I now have a variable that contains a number or an integer. What we're seeing here though is it's just one value, just one. What if you want to have multiple values? Well, you can do that too. So let's say hi2 equals hi Mike, comma, hi other Mike. I don't know. I was trying to think of a name and I just couldn't. So this variable hi2 now contains two values, hi Mike and hi other Mike. It doesn't have to be just a string or just an integer. So for example, if I go like this in Python, this is called a list. A list is just a list of values. Think of like a shopping list or a to-do list or something, for example. So what we could do is we could say, get apples, get cookies, get bacon. So now we have a list of get apples, get cookies, get bacon. What if we want to see this list in action, or if we want to see any of these variables in action? Well, that's where the print method can come into play. So a print method is essentially a way to get output to the screen for the end user, us being the end user. So for example, I'm going to type in hi, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to run Scratch. And as we can see, it printed out hi Mike. Let's try with num. Right click, run Scratch, and boom, we can see that it's 5. So this value here is being printed out to the output down here with the print method. And this is coming from this variable with this value, and that's why we see 5 in the output. So let's say we want to print out that hi2 list. Well, we absolutely can as well. We can say hi2, and then we can run Scratch, and we can see this list. Get apples, get cookies, get bacon. So let's say you want to print all of the values all at the same time. You could definitely see what's going to happen if we type in all of the values. And then we click Run Scratch. And as we can see, it has printed out all of the values. Now, what if you want to add some values up, for example? So we could have another variable, say num1 equals 10. We can go to the print method here and we can say num plus num1. And what do you think is going to happen? Let's run it and find out. And as you can see, this is going to print out 15. It's going to add those two numbers together. Now this is something interesting. What happens if we try to add an integer and a string? Well, let's go ahead and run this. And as we can see, it's an unsupported operand, meaning you can't add a string and a number. There's no equal. There's no value that comes out of that. You can't do that. Or what happens if we try to run high2 plus high? You can only concatenate a list, not a string, to a list. So for example, I have this list here, and maybe I can do high2 append high. And this append here, this is another method that essentially adds something, some string, to the end of the list. And then if we go ahead and we turn this into a variable, we'll say app, and then we'll go down to our print method and we'll type in app here. Let's see this run. And you may be wondering why. Well, most functions or methods or anything that changes or alters the sequence in, say, a list or any type of mapping, it's going to usually return a none value. So let's actually just completely get rid of this variable. We're going to go like this, and we're just going to have high2 append high. We're going to run this. Okay, and then now let's see the new output. We'll right click, run scratch. So as we can see, hi Mike has now been appended. So if you try to put something into a variable to append, like a list, and then you try to print out that variable, it's not going to have any values in it specifically. But if you just append high to high2 and then you print high2 out that variable that contains the value, it'll work. So now let's try something else. Let's do high2 append. We'll just do like another string, pickle, and then we'll run this. And as we can see, pickle is appended at the end. The last thing that I want to show is just because a value is stored in a variable doesn't mean it has to be printed out. So for example, I'm going to erase all that and I have all these values here. If I run it, nothing gets printed out. However, these variables are still stored in memory and they can be used later.